The orbital flight of Starship, arguably the most important event in human spaceflight history since the Apollo missions, is getting days and days away from taking an enormous step, or at least that would appear to be the case. SpaceX is wasting no time whatsoever after receiving the FAA approval, at least on the environmental side, and so a lot of people are expecting big things in the near future. All 33 engines have been installed on the latest booster, that is to say Booster 7. The booster has arrived at the pad and the public has been notified that closures are imminent if they haven't happened already, and also there has been a maritime warning given to any passing shipping, and that warning extends several hundred meters off the coast. This would suggest some very aggressive activity at the pad, but there's been a lot of speculation as to what this activity is actually going to be. A lot of people are talking about an aggressive static fire campaign, and that may be the case. However, if old tank watchers like myself are anticipating that SpaceX is going to get started with the same level of intensity that we experienced when they were sending up one prototype after another virtually every month and blowing them apart most of the time, we are likely to be disappointed, because Super Heavy is an entirely different animal, and if anything goes significantly wrong with this, it could not only represent significant consequences to the surrounding area and the community, but also significant consequences for SpaceX's plans. Hello YouTube, I'm the Angry Astronaut, and this is... First of all, however, I would like to make a personal appeal. Yesterday, I released a video entitled 10 Reasons Why You Should Care About British Spaceflight. I think I changed it to Everyone Should Care About It, and I understand that SpaceX fans may not find British spaceflight very compelling. Some people ask me why I'm not covering South Korean spaceflight because they actually got something to orbit. The difference is, emerging spaceflight programs usually go with what works. That is to say, expendable rockets similar to what ULA was using 30 years ago, whereas Great Britain is investing in innovation right off the bat. And as I say, I gave 10 very compelling reasons as to why British spaceflight is important, but you're not going to know these 10 reasons unless you check out the video. Here's the link right there, and let's move on to SpaceX. Now, obviously, the recent developments of the pad have given us a lot of cause to be excited. People are talking, as I said before, about an aggressive static fire campaign, perhaps with all 33 engines within the next few weeks. However, it bears remembering that Elon told us that static fires would begin with Super Heavy in September of last year, and although that did indeed happen with a few engines, it certainly didn't go to 31 or 33 or however many engines it had back then. That is a very aggressive static fire, the likes of which hasn't been attempted with any rocket for a very long time, really since the Soviet N1, and all of us remember what happened with that. Consequently, we can expect that any static fire campaign is going to involve a few engines at first, perhaps the outer ring, perhaps the inner ring, perhaps some pre-burner tests. Also, there's going to have to be the equivalent of wet rehearsals, filling up the booster with methane and other fuels. That alone is very dangerous and could represent a threat even to shipping a few hundred meters off the coast, which is probably one of the reasons that they put that warning out. So we need to remember what SpaceX is trying to do at the moment is substantially substantially different than what they were doing with ships like SN4 or SN9 or even SN15. This is an entirely different animal. Lots more engines, a lot more flammable liquid, and a lot more potential for things to go wrong. And if things go wrong this time, the consequences are going to be substantially more disastrous than anything that happened with previous tests. So the whole philosophy of pushing it until it breaks is going to be a lot more problematic. An exploding, fully fueled super heavy booster has the potential to blow out windows in Port Isabel and South Padre Island, perhaps showering people with broken glass. Yes, that did happen with N1, and a lot further away than either of these two locations, and it had a lot less fuel. Now, a lot of people say that methane isn't going to do something like that, but that is a big unknown quantity, and even NASA says that. They have asked for a very thorough study to be made at Cape Canaveral to see how much damage an exploding Starship would do to surrounding launch towers, let alone how much damage it would do to the landscape. I guarantee you that if one of these things blows up, there's going to be biologists there in force counting exactly how many dead animals are littering the landscape surrounding the pad. Once again, this happened with N1. The surrounding landscape was completely covered in dead animals. The difference was the Soviet Union didn't have to care about those sorts of consequences. SpaceX absolutely does. Now, to be clear, I am in no way saying that disaster is imminent or that SpaceX is going to have some sort of massive explosion that's going to cause all sorts of consequences for the area. I'm saying nothing like that, and the reason I don't believe that's going to happen is because SpaceX isn't stupid, Gwynne Shotwell isn't stupid, and they're going to proceed with a lot more caution than they used to, simply because the stakes are a lot higher now. And it's not just in regards to the potential of an exploding Starship. It's also about what makes sense for a successful testing plan. For example, have a look at the final PEA executive summary from the FAA. They mention that there's going to be 5 Starship suborbital launches. Now, why the hell would those be necessary if Starship is going to be going to orbit with the next launch? Well, in my opinion, it's because they intend to carry out at least 1 or 2 practice suborbital launches with the Super Heavy booster. Now, it does say Starship suborbital launch and not Super Heavy suborbital launch, but the way these regulations work, as long as SpaceX maintains an ongoing dialogue with the FAA as to how they're carrying out their testing regimen, making a small modification like this would be an easy thing to do. So in my opinion, they're going to be sending up at least 1 or 2 suborbital super heavy launches with a weight simulator on top of the rocket, something that will simulate the weight of a fully fueled Starship. That is a lot less risky and a lot easier to test the capabilities of Super Heavy without risking a massive explosion and also the destruction of 2 vehicles instead of 1. And another reason that SpaceX needs to avoid major anomalies is the matter of debris and road closures. Any sort of super heavy explosion is going to create a lot more debris and a lot more damage to the landscape that's going to require a great deal of cleanup and probably a lot of road closures while these operations are taking place. In the FAA approval, SpaceX projects that they are only going to have 500 hours worth of road closures per year. Now, of course, that's subject to modification. Road closures is in the hands of the county, not the FAA. However, if SpaceX ends up closing access to Boca Chica Beach and to this region a hell of a lot more than 500 hours in the course of a year, it's going to generate a lot of complaints from the local community and, more importantly, lawsuits from various organizations who have been trying to stop this from the beginning, including the Sierra Club. SpaceX doesn't want to deal with this kind of static. And this is something unique once again to this spaceport. It is just such a huge pain in the ass that SpaceX has to deal with beach access at Boca Chica and the public's easy access to that region while they're conducting tests on the most important and powerful rocket in human history. I mean, think about it. Does anybody else allow you to drive on a highway right next to their most important rocket? Of course not. But the very location of this launch pad requires that SpaceX give people access. That's just not a good thing in general, but it's going to be a lot more problematic if they have an anomaly, and that's another reason why I think that SpaceX is going to proceed with a great deal more caution. So what does all of this mean? Well, first of all, I believe that Starship will make a successful orbital flight, and that means sending the entire ship to orbit, landing the Super Heavy, and then having the orbiter at least attempt a re-entry somewhere in the vicinity of Hawaii. I think that will happen within the next 12 months. But in the meantime, we're going to need pre-burner tests, we're going to need a number of tanking tests, a wet rehearsal, static fires in a variety of different configurations before we even try to static fire 33 engines at the same time. That is just going to be a monumental event, again, the likes of which we haven't seen in 50 years. That cannot be taken lightly. And then perhaps a Super Heavy booster hop, either ditching it somewhere in the Gulf or perhaps trying to land it, because reusability is the most important part of this ship. I don't think Booster 7 is going to orbit. I really don't. It may go to a suborbital flight, but I don't think it's going to successfully make it to orbit. I don't think that it was built for that purpose, given the number of other boosters that we've seen tested and scrapped. And although a great deal has been said about Starlink racks having been spotted being fitted inside Starship's fairing and also the so-called Starship Pez dispenser for Starlink, it also bears pointing out that large numbers of Starlink satellites have not been shipped to Boca Chica yet, at least not to our knowledge, and even if they are, they can be warehoused for a very long period of time. We of course know that Starship is intended to deploy vast numbers of Starlink satellites, but just because they're doing some preliminary testing with the equipment doesn't mean that a launch with Starlink satellites is imminent. It would be rather foolish, actually. You could potentially lose all of those satellites or deploy them to the wrong orbit, which could be just as problematic. And the last thing we need to remember is none of us really knows what SpaceX is up to. Even those of us who have some insiders at the company need to know, and I'm sure they're aware, that their plans change constantly. Even when information does get leaked, that information is out of date very quickly. The best way for us to determine what SpaceX is up to is just to keep watching, and I'll definitely be doing that for all of you. So smash that like, hit that subscribe, and until Starship actually does carry out a successful orbital mission and changes the future of human civilization forever, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.